Hello and welcome to another thrilling episode of Tech Startup Unfiltered. I'm one of your hosts, Pete Dillon-Dixon, and I'm joined as ever by my friend and colleague and associate and partner and general all-round startup wizard, Stuart Prestedge. Hey, Stuart.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing great. So, listen, just right off the bat, what's something that's positive happened in? Okay, so it's 2 weeks since we recorded one of these, just with scheduling difficulties last week. So, what's positive been happening in your life personally or professionally the last couple of weeks?
Well, professionally, I have now engaged a company that has a sales team. So that will help me to help more founders, to get more
Wonderful.
founders on board, which is nice. So I can pass them more people who need help, which I couldn't do before. So that's a really positive thing. Personally, goodness me, just ticking along, doing lots of sports, lost some weight, which is good. Had some great ideas, which I have to put off from implementing, but one of which I might implement. We'll see. But it actually feeds into our today's discussion, so I won't talk about that just yet.
Right.
So yeah, generally all
Wonderful.
positive.
Great. Well, the most positive thing that's happened for me in the last couple of weeks is we've attached David Bradley as an executive producer on the short film. You know who David Bradley is?
Rings a
He
bell.
was in. Did you watch any of the Harry Potter films?
Yes.
Yeah, so he's the caretaker with the cat.
Yes, I know.
David Bradley, and he was in Game of Thrones, ex-RSC, National Theatre. I mean, he's a acting icon in the UK. So yeah, that's very exciting and very positive.
Excellent. Congratulations.
So things are moving there. So from like real life people, David Bradley, moving on to the topic of what I'd like to talk about on this Tech Startup Unfiltered, which is like the complete opposite of real life people. And we've skirted around it a little bit, I think, on some of our episodes. But I think it's time to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is the role that AI plays, should play, shouldn't play in a founder's thinking about getting a tech startup going. And I guess the question that I want to ask on behalf of the tech startup founder that's listening or watching this is, are there any ways that or places, or interpret the question as you kind of need to, that I categorically should not be using AI? First off, let's go there, and then we'll delve into perhaps more positive uses of it.
Yeah, 100%. We will end up on a positive note. But yes, I think, and a lot of this is opinion based, and I am by no means an expert, although I, like probably everyone else, am trying to use AI where it's appropriate. But yes, certainly, I think there are quite a few places, big and small, where AI shouldn't be used, at least without a human in the loop. And there are some obvious ones, like relying on the AI output for legal and compliance and security advice. You can fall foul of that, but it's good to get a general overview of thing. But I think you still need to rely on experts, humans, because AI just gets it wrong, a lot of the time. And obviously, vibe coding is a big thing now. Now, I love the concept of vibe coding, but I see a lot of people not properly designing their products, not coming in with a design mindset and thinking about what they're trying to achieve. And kicking the can down the road a little bit on technical requirements and just focusing on doing, patching, throwing mud at the wall, how development used to be done before we had best practices, really, just throwing the mud at the wall. Well, we need to do this and need to do this and need to do this, without really stepping back and thinking about not only the requirements, but the design of the system as well. So I see a lot of that happening, which I think will lead to a lot of technical debt. And I very much doubt people are thinking about future-proofing the software. It's an art and a science that requires experience, but it's almost like throwaway software, which on the front end stuff, great. Okay, maybe you do throw away your front end and redo it. That's fine. But on the back end, it's more critical that you don't have this mindset of I need to throw it away and start again. Not least of which because you've got data in there, and
Is it a bit like when desktop publishing software came out, 30 years ago, and people were saying like, well, that's the end of designers. We don't need designers anymore because we've got software that can do it. But actually, you still need the like with vibe coding, you still need to know how to think like a programmer and how to design software like a programmer. Is that ever going to not be the case?
I don't know, but I would say more you need to be an architect than a programmer. A programmer is like a bricklayer. Sorry, developers that are out there, but in theory, developers should be taking a technical specification and implementing it. I feel not making decisions. I have this motto that developers shouldn't make decisions, which I know may upset some people, but they shouldn't, because you need to have done all the work to design the technical spec beforehand. So in a way, it's the developer is replaceable, unfortunately, but the architect with experience is important, because that's where the design thinking comes in and the high level, how the requirements are met. But so that's vibe coding, and I don't want to spend too long on vibe coding. But there's another area I actually think that AI shouldn't be used, which is when you need human authenticity. So, for example, the videos that I make, that are the first videos people see of me, I could make those with HeyGen, and they look very realistic, but they're not authentic. So I do these videos myself, and I edit them to try to remove most mistakes, and try and make it sort of professional and good. And I do use HeyGen on the back end when there's kind of like, we need to give you some information here, whether it's a training or whether it's kind of people speaking to my team and they need some information beforehand, and it's me talking, but it's AI. But I think you've got to fundamentally look at when the human should be there, and the things that we bring as humans that AI can't bring. We are real. We can reassure people when we mean it. When on the face of it, people.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that also applies not only to video but also to the written word. Communication is, when you see something that has been written by AI, it's been written by AI almost at a cellular level in your body, and where you need to connect with another human. So in marketing, communication, or reaching out to investors, I would categorically say, do not let AI take you away from yourself in doing the thinking required, and the doing the connection that's required, if you like, to connect with another human in that way.
It is a balance. It's a balance, because obviously AI has more experience doing this as copywriter, and most people aren't trained copywriters, and it's more efficient. But I think you've got to have that essence of you in there somehow. whether it's changing a little bit or adding a paragraph that is you, or trying to teach the AI, your tonality. So it is a balance. I'm less strict about text myself, because I see it as just some information that is engaging and people want to read. I'm not a copywriter. I don't consider myself a good person who can write, text well. So I rely on it for that. But I think fundamentally, all of this, the fundamental principle here is think before you dive in. Think about what you're trying to achieve, and what your requirements are. And I'm not talking about technical requirements. I'm talking generally requirements. What is it I'm trying to achieve here, and what is the best way of achieving it? And AI can be totally inappropriate, or it might be this could be done completely by AI. That's fine. That meets the requirements. Or a mixture, balance, which is more often than not the case. But the time you spend, and yes, you can use ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini to help you to define those requirements, but you need to take the time to understand what they are, what you're trying to achieve, and then decide what the right tool for the job is. And it's always been the case. I'm trying to achieve a job. What's the right tool for the job? If you use the right tool, it's efficient, it's quality. If you use the wrong tool, it's the opposite.
Yeah. And I find my results with AI improve when I give it high quality input of supporting documentation, and I ask it to ask me questions and almost coach out of me what it is that that I want to say, or what I want to do, rather than just say, go and do this, because then it's just spinning its wheels with what it thinks you might want to know.
Yeah, and what I do is, if I'm doing something specific, I'll create a separate chat and say, I need to do this in this other thing, like create a custom GPT or Gemini Gem or Claude Cowork or whatever. I'm trying to do this. Help me do it. Help me write the prompt. Ask me questions. Tell me what I've missed. Critique what I tell you, that kind of thing. So yeah, and that's where it's a companion tool to help you. You bring your value, it brings its value, and it's additive kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you're not relying completely on it.
Yeah, and we're starting to move towards the more appropriate uses of AI, and obviously the biggest one for me is when you have a lot of data that you're trying to find patterns in. You're trying to find some kind of order.
Well, that's just one use, and I've got a use that I'm thinking of, which is totally not that. That's just one use, but yeah, I use it for that all the time. Looking for duplicate data and looking things up and organizing data, and that's almost like utility use of AI now.
Yeah. So let's move on to where you think AI. I don't like the phrase really, but I guess is appropriate. Is a game changer in terms of somebody that is coming, into being a tech startup founder for the first time now, as opposed to when you first did that, when the dinosaurs were roaming the earth.
So yeah, so
sorry, couldn't resist.
No, there were no dinosaurs. There was just fish in the sea. I think the biggest thing is now having an MVP is kind of table stakes now, especially as it's so quick and cheap to do, and non-technical founders can do it. And at least two of my clients who are non-technical have created a pretty decent MVP using, whatever, anti-gravity, one of them, Lovable is another. So yeah, that's kind of table stakes for investment, because you can then use that to get more traction.
Right.
So that is obviously the use of AI.
So that's not just creating something to bring your idea to life, sort of demo it, but to actually be used in anger, would you say?
Not necessarily in anger, but to prove that. So you will demo it to people, to potential customers, and And if it's the MVP, which I say is minimum valuable product, not minimum viable product, because it has to give value.
Okay.
I don't like viable. That's just about making profit. Maybe it's in this context, it's not. But anyway, so the minimum valuable product. So it's to show people to get their buy-in. Not financially, but their emotional buy-in. Say, yeah, this solves my problem. So people can't. Most people can't visualize a solution. They have to have it shown to them.
So how does that help with traction then? Thinking about
Getting
using that to talk with them.
getting people registered for free, getting people on a wait list. Partnership agreements. So another client of mine has created a platform, and then he's looking for partners, and he can show them that he's done the demo platform, almost production ready, but demo. He can then take that to potential partners and sign up those partners.
Got it.
So that's someone I spoke to today is doing that very
Okay.
thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so using it to get traction, not just using it to show something, but also it's not just that, it adds to your credibility, it adds to how serious you are about doing this, whether you did it yourself or get to someone else. It's like, we're serious about this because we've created this thing. And again, investors are more experienced than customers at visualizing something, but it's much better as a human to show something, show progress.
And that does come with the caveat of almost every other episode of Tech Startup Unfiltered is don't just start with creating your minimum viable product. Make sure you validated the idea, and we can give you links to all the other episodes where we've talked about that. But when you get to that point, it like you say, it is table stakes. It's like there's no reason not to be able to create a minimum valuable product that really does help you move your startup forward.
Yeah, the trouble is vibe coding blurs the boundary. So you can use, a partially or fully vibe coded MVP as part of the validation process. Because as I said, customers, normal people find it difficult to visualize a solution. But I still wouldn't go there first, unless you're an experienced person. For example, I created a product using Lovable for a client, and I did it on and off, but it took me less than 3 days to do in actual working time. So I could do that in 3 days. But I wrote the requirements. I checked it with the client. I checked it with AI. I got it to critique the requirements, and then I used that, and I did it component. I had the design in my head, and I did it properly, what I believe to be properly, to the requirements, design in terms of the components, start with the foundational component. So I did that in a short period of time. Now, if you can do that, you're not spending 20 grand and 3, 4, 5 months doing it. So then the argument then becomes, well, why not do that? And then when you first start talking to people, show them, you don't, the same principles for validation apply. You don't start off with the solution, but when you get to that solution part of that validation process, that's when you can show them. So it does blur the boundaries. But for example, the non-technical client I mentioned, who created a great product, he's done a great job, but he's non-technical. Took him best part of 3 months, maybe 2.5 months. So that's the other end of the blurry line, which is, don't do that first. Don't do that 3 months first. Talk to people. But so there is overlap. So it's not so cut and dry anymore. But hopefully you get the point.
Just while we're talking about vibe coding, Phil, who's watching this live, says vibe coding for unit testing is great. It saves a bunch of time.
Yeah.
What does he mean by that?
So you can a piece of software, software designed properly it's a piece of software, but it's split into modules, and those modules are split into submodules, and they're split into submodules, and everything works together. And if designed properly with solid principles, each module is responsible for one job, and then one job and one job, and then a set of modules together is responsible for one job, but at a higher level. And it kind of goes like this hierarchy. And unit testing is where you're starting at the smallest module. It's responsible for one job. it has some inputs, it needs to do stuff, and then it has outputs. And that do stuff might be, store something in the database or send off an email or whatever. Okay. Unit test tests every possible, theoretically, it's not practically possible, but tests every possible input, every possible situation, and checks that the output and the stuff that it does, what it's stored in the database or the email that it's sent, whatever, is as expected. But it also tests the erroneous cases. If I pass in this bad input, it should do this differently and have this different output. So it's testing happy and unhappy paths is a common expression. And then, so it actually used to take more time to write unit tests for software than it did to take, for me at least, did to write the software itself. And I don't want to diverge too much into this, but now you can have a module and you should have, here's the requirements for that module. And that requirement should include the definition of success and say, thanks, Phil. And say, yeah, because I believe in unit tests. So I'm glad you brought it up. I love unit tests. I've lost my train of thought. So,
do you then get AI then to write the unit test for that?
You've got the requirement and the definition of success. You can give that to AI and say, write all the unit tests and make sure they all pass. And they'll fail and blah 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 blah. And you might not get it to change the code. You might say, if it fails, is it the test that's wrong? And this is this is a whole philosophical kind of theoretical thing. Is the test correct? How do you do that? Write code to test the test. It's kind of like, elephants, what was it? Turtles all the way down or something.
I don't know.
Discworld.
But I'm glad Phil did brought it up and that I asked the clarifying question, because that'll be something that a lot, particularly non-technical founders, will have learned from this episode.
Yeah, and I just want to add that you don't have to get the AI to rewrite the module if the module is wrong. You can get it to tell you what's wrong and why it's wrong and recommend a change, and then as a human go in and change it. So you don't have to get AI to write your code.
Yeah,
but it still is a fantastic use of AI. Thanks for bringing that up, Phil.
Yeah, Phil just said vibe coding without testing is the route to slop. a lot of pain and frustration as well.
So modules, yeah. But I do want to come on to this sort of ultimate use of AI in a minute, if that's okay.
Yeah, go. Okay, let's go there and kind of wrap up with the ultimate use of AI for a startup.
Let's step back. I believe that we create businesses and things and software ultimately to create value, ultimately to achieve something for someone. That could be a company or a person, to do value. Now, a business is just a way of doing that. Just like a car is a way of bringing value. It gets me from A to B without making much effort. A business is kind of like, I'm going to give something of value, something that someone wants, and at the same time give value to the shareholders, make money. So there should be no reason, and it's becoming closer and closer, for me to say, okay, I've had an idea for a business that can give value to these people. This problem, just like all the founders I'm helping, they're all trying to create something that gives value to them and to their potential customers.
Sure.
So very soon, if not now, and I'm actually starting to experiment with this, you should be able to say to AI, and obviously you need to preload it with various skills and et cetera, but someone who's experienced, like myself, should give enough information and context and just enough prescriptive information, prescriptive detail, but not too much, to say, I need a company that helps these people to solve this problem with these business requirements. Create me a company. Create me a company that does this, gives this value, makes money, using agentic AI. And I'm actually starting to do this, starting to create, agents that have roles within a company. Now, there'll always be a human touch, I think. So you need specific guardrails, especially around things like spending money. and there are specific things that you probably shouldn't let it do, like setting up bank accounts and setting up Stripe accounts and that kind of thing, because you want to control that. But that's a one-off thing. But once you do that, I don't think it'd be long before people are just saying, I need a business to do this, I need a business to do this, and a business to do this. And it does require like kind of a blueprint, and it does require some skills, that are trained up. But I think we're almost there with just literally just saying, I want a business that does this for this people in this way. As I said, slightly prescriptive. Tell me what I need to do as the human. I'll be the backstop if you get stuck as an AI. You can't make a decision, something's outside of your experience. But other than that, that's the ultimate where we're going in one direction, at least for the business direction with AI.
And what relevance is probably isn't the right word, but what impact does that have on tech startups and a tech startup founder today? The founder that's listening or watching this.
Just like now, I haven't gone down the funding road, and I don't think we've got time, and that's a philosophical thing that I haven't given enough thought about yet. So I won't go down the funding route. But if you only care about solving a particular problem for particular people with a certain kind of solution that has certain requirements on it, soon you won't even have to do the vibe coding. You'll just literally say that to it, and it will say, right, I need to create a web app that has, and maybe you have to give it the conceptual requirements. I mean, requirements are, it's not just one thing, it's split up into multiple things that's kind of hierarchical. But one of those things is the scope and the concepts within the solution. Now, you may have to give it the concepts that you have, or at least high level concepts. But that might be all you need to do. And it literally decides, I'm going to create a web app with all these pages and these screens using this, using this authentication methods and integrating with this, and sends out emails and notifications and has this database, and I'll set up the database backend, and I'll have this data schema and these REST APIs, this security. I'll make sure, and you soon, I don't think you'll even need to be able to tell it all this stuff. It will literally know that all this stuff is needed because it's industry best practice. Everybody should be doing this. Therefore, AI knows about it. So founder's job will change if this does come to fruition in the same way that most other people's jobs change, from doing the actual nuts and the bolts, doing the business plan and thinking about the strategy and hiring people and setting up marketing campaigns and finding a development provider and all this kind of day-to-day stuff. The founder's job will be elevated to let's think about the value that I'm going to give, the high-level strategy and the value that I'm going to give to these people, and what kind of solution I want. And we're talking software here, and digital services as well. So the founder's job will elevate to this. I've identified a problem that I'm solving, and it's a big enough problem it needs solving, and it's big enough that it's going to create revenue for me. And of course, the costs will come down. It'll just be tokens you're paying for. So actually, the revenue doesn't need to be as high, other than obviously paying the founder.
So it's almost like utilitizing business itself. The business becomes a utility.
Software startups will be a utility. That's kind of where I'm headed. Right. Yeah, that's kind of my thinking, and I'm experimenting with these things now.
Fascinating. Well, you heard it here first on Tech Startup Unfiltered. Let's just say that. That's generally, well, it's generally interesting. I don't know whether it's exciting or not. You're not in front of your Blade Runner poster, but it's kind of thinking, is that where we're going? Where we've got
where we're going. I'll sit in the garden under a tree, thinking about who I want to help, how I want to help them, and thinking the value. I'm once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur. every entrepreneur I speak to, it's like a drug. It's like you want to create stuff, you want to help people. So if I can get to a point where I can help these people to do this, and I know enough to be able to describe this to AI, right, off you go, and then another problem.
I mean, that part of what you're talking about, I can buy into. This idea of spending time thinking about the value that you want to provide to people and the problems that you want to solve. And I guess if in what you're describing of making the business of creating a software startup, a utility, allows founders to be more human, I guess, in a way, and not have to do all this stuff which can be done by AI agents or whatever you call them. Then yeah, it's genuinely fascinating.
Yeah, and like I say, being an entrepreneur, you see problems all the time, and some of which you're passionate about. Imagine, I think of an example the other day. I was driving around Europe, and I thought that, why doesn't things happen like this? If it did, it would just be so much easier for people. If I can click my fingers and make it happen, boom, problem solved. Now, there are always edge cases, always exceptions, always the devil's in the detail. It is, and you always need some human interaction somewhere, but that will become less and less. Because soon you'll have agents talking to other, my agents in my company talking to another supplier who's run by an AI thing. So that it will get to a point where we're all sitting on a beach and these companies are talking to each other. I don't know about the economics of this. Obviously, there'll be winners and losers, I'm sure, but I'm not sure. I'm not an economist. I'm more of a technologist. But these are philosophical questions that should be thought about. But my head's not big enough to do both.
War games, as Phil said. Yeah, what a cracker that was.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've really gone deep into AI today on Tech Startup Unfiltered. Stuart, thanks for opening your brain to us for a little bit. We're back same time, same place next week. I hope you'll join us. Until then, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me. Have a great week.